raise revenue. Every 5 years, Kenyans vote in a government or vote out a government. That government develops a manifesto on what it is going to do for the citizens. The funding of that manifesto, the development agenda, accrues from a finance bill that comes in every 1 year. So for 5 years, a government in place must take to Parliament a finance bill to finance its budgets for 1 year. Governments don't have any sources of money other than taxes from the citizens. That is the primary revenue source for government. So anybody lying to you that Ruto will give you his salary to build a road, or a member of parliament, like the member of parliament for West Mugrango, Honorable Steve Mogaka, where I am in his constituency, all the CDF resources that the children from these constituents are getting come from taxes. So once we agree that the government will only fund its functions from taxes, then those taxes are raised by the finance bill. Then the question that is there, if government does not raise funds from the finance bill, it will then go to raise funds from loans, external loans. That is why in Africa we have the African Development Bank. Kenya borrows from that place. That is why we have the World Bank. That is why we have the International Monetary Fund. All these are lending institutions that lend countries money at an interest. So when Kenya goes to borrow, it borrows, it pays the principal amount that it got, and it also pays interest. The third sources of funds is countries loaning directly each other. For example, the SGR, it is a loan from the Republic of China. The expressway in Nairobi, it is a loan from China. So we aid as a country get into loaning from foreign countries at a higher interest rate than the World Bank and the other agencies. The fourth avenue the government can raise money from is borrowing domestically, from KCB, from Absa Bank, from Cooperative Bank, from Equity Bank. It borrows directly from the banks at a very astronomical interest rate. Lastly, the government borrows money or funds its services from selling of treasury bills. Kenyans buy treasury bills. The treasury bills are floated by Kenyans, to Kenyans, and they buy, and other international agencies. So those are the avenues under which the government borrows money from. So let me deal with the finance bill. 2023-2024, a finance bill came in when the UDA government floated the first finance bill. Kenyans raised a lot of problems about that. This year, there is also another finance bill, 2024-2025 financial year, where government has decided to tax heavily Kenyans. The questions before everybody asks, do you want development? Is a country going to develop without infrastructure? That country will not go anywhere. Is a country going to develop without us having value added to our agricultural products? That country must grow. So in my view, and this one, we rarely agree with President Ruto, but on this one, I totally support him that for any type of development, as Kenyans, when you want to build a house, your domestic house, your home house, you must cut on luxury spending. You must save to build a house. You must save to buy a cow. You must save to buy a sufuria. You must save to fund all your expenses. You must have money to pay your medical bills and the bills of your relatives. You must have money to fund the burial of your kin when they die. What will be the source of that? It will be your salary, it will be your saving, it will be you going to borrow. So government has decided that for the first time, we must run away from borrowing from outside sources. We must fund ourselves. President Kibaki looked inside to fund development. Out of it, Thika Highway was built with our own resources, little loans. But that was only one project. Now we have 47 counties where development must go. Now we have 290 constituencies where development must go. We must increase the doctor's salaries. We must increase the teacher's salaries. We must increase expenditure on employment of government officers. We must provide adequate security for our citizens by arming the Kenya Armed Forces, by facilitating the Kenya police services. So the question is, do we need those things? If the answer is yes, the country must develop and must look for resources inwardly. The only problem is that the Kenya government has not taken time to put civic education to the people, that don't ask for money from government if that money is not going to come from you. When the floods were here, we were saying, Serikali's idea. Where does that government get money from? In my view, it is the right time we fund ourselves. And for those men and women who do not have their own properties, they are always laughed at. Dignity over any person comes when they feed themselves. It is an embarrassment that we are going to borrow to buy food. It is an embarrassment that when there are floods, we must go to America to ask for donations. The Americans are heavily taxed to run their affairs, and what remains is what we borrow. Why can't we tax ourselves for the benefit of our country? So, for this country to develop and for this country to be a first world country, it must tax itself, it must develop itself, but with a caveat, is that money that is being taxed being used prudently. The fight against corruption should go hand in hand with the raising of taxes, so that any 10,000 shillings raised is utilized for the good of those taxpayers. So, as the president is pushing for the agenda to tax people, he should also be pushing the agenda for the accountability and transparency and usage of those resources. An undertaking that is going to overtax Kenyans with a view that within 3 years, every government activity shall be funded by the local taxes. It is a very tall order, but it is achievable if the president is focused on raising the tax base, if the president is bringing everybody on the tax bill, if the president will be able to close those who evade paying taxes, then it is achievable. And that will be a tremendous legacy that the President of the Republic of Kenya will have left to the Kenyans. But the biggest issue I'll have, they will raise that money. Will that money be available for usage for the intended purposes? Corruption will take all that money. Extravagant usage. We've seen this government being extravagant in terms of the choppers, the vehicles they are buying, the planes they're hiring to America, the type of luxury. The president's statement is a serious paradox. It's a contradiction. He looks a man who is worried that the economy is doing very poorly, but in a second he forgets they are in a lot of lagis. The president has said 30% of the budget of government, the current expenditure, is going to be slashed under the Finance Bill 2024-2025. We are yet to see. But myself, I give him a benefit of doubt that let us fund ourselves, let us have our dignity, because the Constitution of Kenya talks of human dignity. We can only have a national dignity when we feed ourselves, when we educate ourselves, when we fund ourselves. We do not become beggars. Beggars have no dignity. Beggars cannot be on the table as an equal.
Thank you.